All right, peace to the family out there in the world. Welcome back to another episode with your host Radiohead, Rich in the building. I got a living legend with us tonight, and I want to introduce the brother. The brother is known all over. He's an expert when it comes to emergency preparedness, self-reliance, and sustainable living. This brother's an author, inventor, activist. King Simon introduced me to this brother, has told me about the brother for years. I've known about the brother for years. And, every now and then, I think it's important that I bring the brother on to the show to remind the people the importance of preparedness. Not necessarily fear, but preparedness is very important. I'll give you an example. A storm hit my neighborhood the day before Stone Mountain, and electricity went out. A tree just missed my house, fell right beside my house. There's things that we need. We see the storms coming through. We see what recently happened in Texas, family. We see what's going on with the flights, and people can't get flights these days, and planes are acting weird. We seeing things going on with just all types of things and situations, and it's important to be connected with somebody who has spent the majority of their lives helping us to be prepared for situations that we need to be prepared for. So with that being said, I want to welcome back to the platform Aton Edwards. Welcome back, my brother.
Hey, brother, thanks for having me, and peace to everybody out there, kind of living through all of the madness, the summer, the floods, the
Yeah.
heat, all of the different things that are happening now. That's a result of the climate change that a lot of people want to deny.
Hmm.
But I can tell you that it's real,
Hmm.
and I can also tell all of y'all listening tonight that our folks, we need to get ourselves together because like what's happening, it's not going to get better over time. It's going to continually get worse. We're not in that period anymore where we have the kind of an even platform, and we have to adapt now. We are moving into a phase where we have to adapt to the changing environment that's going to dramatically change over the course of even the next 5 years. So I'm just happy to be here to kind of help guide people through that path.
Indeed. All right. So when we talk about disaster or emergency preparedness, self-reliance, and sustainable living, what's some of the things that come to your mind that people should think about when you mention those?
The first thing that comes to mind when you say that is that I want people to recognize that you
Hmm.
you are your own first responder.
Okay.
That's the first thing that you have to understand about this, right? Because in a lot of cases, you hear people who are in the prepping community and things like that, the preppers, and they talk about the external things, right? Go bags and stuff that you hear a lot about go bags, right?
Right.
And this isn't about go bags. This is about what you have up here first. It's your knowledge. What you have up here, having plans, knowing what you're up against, and then of course having the tools to deal with it. And but it's a holistic practice. And as King Simon is, I know you have King Simon, who has been I've trained with for over almost 30 years,
Right.
and who's a very strong expert in this, who is an activist as well. Is we recognize that it has to be a holistic practice. It can't be what you hear about in like the prepping community and all that, because I want to move us away from that mindset, and I want to explain it to you. Um, that when you think about the prepping, you got to understand where it was born in, and the prepping in itself, it's just another tag for what they call survivalism. And this was born during the Cold War, when 1950s, when people thought they were going to get nuked and fried into kind of radioactive toast,
Hmm.
and they were building bomb shelters in their backyards and ducking and covering and falling under desks. And then over time, as things started to happen across the country, we saw a lot of geopolitical volatility. People started to worry about the society. Is it going to collapse? And so then you got the survivalists, and the survivalists were go up in the woods and train, and most of them didn't look like us. They weren't black folk,
Right.
right? But the philosophy that this was born from, it's not a particularly great philosophy because it wasn't holistic. Now you have people who existed within the United States. Like one, what I call my greatest professor that I never had as a professor was a guy named Buckminster Fuller, and Buckminster Fuller was the he improved the design of the geodesic domes. Like you see these geodesic domes that are surround, like they encase radar systems and such. So when I was a student and I was an engineering student, I used to just study everything that this guy had, and he had a sensibility to recognize that in order for us to kind of move into the future, we have to develop a holistic system of living that we don't do that. And the prepping system is kind of focused on material stuff and getting a go bag and getting this and getting that. And what I want to say to you all today is that this goes far beyond that, especially for us as Black people, because not only do we have to deal with obviously the problems that are coming from the climate crisis, and but we also have other problems that we have to deal with. We have to deal with the systemic racism and the ongoing racism that we have environmental racism that placed us in communities and in areas that are more susceptible to the damage that climate crisis storms are going to do to our communities. We live in places, they call them sacrifice zones. And these are low lying areas near the coastal areas of like rivers and near the coastal areas of oceans, in proximity to factories that produce a lot of dangerous chemicals. Bus depots, transportation hubs, any place. Like I'm going to give you a perfect example. Is a place in Tennessee right now where Elon Musk decided to create a computer that he calls Colossus. Now, just to reference something, if
Right.
any of y'all check out a movie called Colossus about the Forbin project, it's an old science fiction film, but it's relevant right now because of AI. So he builds this supercomputer in this area of Tennessee, and he has to surround this computer with jet turbine generators. But guess who lives in that community? We do. Most of the people who live in that community are Black, and they are inhaling the fumes from that number two jet fuel that those generators burn, and they are getting sick from it. And this is the story of us in the places that we live. They're hazardous. I just spoke with someone who was telling me about how bad their water was. So this is why we as a people, we have to develop a more holistic practice of this. I define it as life defense. And maybe King Simon might have spoken to you about a discipline I created back in the 1990s called improvisational adaptation. And this literally means what it says. You have to improvise and adapt to different situations that you're placed in. So we as a people, I want us to vibe differently, brother. I want us to vibe and to move with this, as Bruce Lee used to say, to flow like water. Whatever disaster and whatever emergency that comes our way, that I want to provide folks with the tools that they need to get around it and to flow like water so that they can just move in the same way that Simon is a martial artist, in the same way that you do jujitsu or Sanukis, Master Powell's art. You just take somebody's energy and you move them, and you use that energy to move it in the other direction. So that's what I want to teach the folks that are listening tonight, and that's where I think we need to go.
Indeed. All right. So, since you just ended that with the topic of water, what do you recommend in case of a disaster? What's the best way to get water? Devices out there to generate water. What's your recommendation on having an adequate water supply in case of an emergency? I know there's
Well, you
machines
know
that
what?
make water out of thin air. Some people say save water. I've heard about the straws before that filters the water out. What would you personally recommend when it comes to water?
Well, the first thing is two things, right? I'm glad that you started with water, because water is the most important component in your survival package, right? Because without water, it's like air. If you can't breathe, then that's it. So the second level of that is water. So what you're going to want to do is it's a number of different things. It's not just having emergency water. You have to have the ability to purify and filter that water as well, because you don't know where you're going to be able to get your water, where you're going to procure it. I'm going to give you an example. So during a disaster, oftentimes you have power outages, right? So when the power outages happen, you have water treatment facilities that no longer can work. And so since most people are connected to municipalities and they get their water from a municipal system, If the municipal system is failing, there's no power to filter the water, then what happens? Where do you get your water from? And then they tell you, oh, it's a boiled water alert, so you need to boil the water that you would normally just pull out of the tap and to drink that. But oftentimes that's not enough. And in fact, it's most times it's not enough, because I can tell you all that most of our communities, the water that we have, it is terrible, absolutely terrible. Um, I can just point blank let you know that there's not. I don't think that this is something that you don't know intrinsically, because we all know that we get the worst of everything. It's not something that we're not hip to. But I don't think that we know to the extent of just how bad the water is in terms of some of the municipalities across the country, in terms of some of the things that we got to worry about, lead content, right? Chromium 6, um, the lime content, the different metals, mercury, all these different things and of course the plastics, microplastics, nanoplastics, all of these different things that we have in our water systems. So when they tell you to boil your water and they say, oh, that's not enough, you got to have the ability to actually filter and purify the water, just in case you have to, procure water during an emergency. You got to be able to clean it. So you got to have water filters, and you got to have containers to put the water in. So one of the things that I've been a proponent of, and one of the things that I'm pushing, with my nonprofit, IPN, and also AfroPrep now, is that we have a baseline. So I want to establish for the Black community on a national level is that we develop a baseline of survival for every single household. It's something that all of us can achieve. We don't have to kind of like ask the government for it. We don't have to wait for it. It's something we can build ourselves. And that is, every Black household should have a certain amount of emergency water and emergency food, right? So let's begin with emergency water. I believe that every household in general, we should have enough water to last us for every single household, every person who lives in the apartment or lives in the home. At the minimum, you need to have 1 gallon of water per person per day. Now, let me say this: that's a minimum. That's a minimum. Generally speaking, with the United Nations, what the most recommended amount of water that you should have in your household for an emergency it's a larger amount. It's 3.5 gallons or 14 liters. I'm in Canada, so I'm going to say liters because that's what we say up here. I'm New Yorker, though. Let me let you know that I'm from New York. So, but Boogie Down Bronx. So the household should have a minimum of 1 gallon of water per person per day for at least 1 week. Now, I want to stress that that's a minimum, brother. That's not a maximum. That's a minimum, because you can never go short with the water. But I know that water is hard to store because it's large, it's heavy. It's even, you have the $5 containers that they have for the water coolers and things like that. You can only get so many in your house, but you need to get as many in your house as possible. And you need to put it aside in a place that's cool, it's not near the sun, because when you have like plastic containers, even if they're food grade plastic, even if they're stable plastic, when you expose plastics to heat, the plastics outgas. And what is that? The plastic breaks down. A lot of its components that it's made out of, the heat makes it release those components into the water. So I'm gonna give you an example. Like, there's a thing in plastic that's called a phthalate, right? And the phthalate is the thing that's used to shape the plastic when you want to shape it into a container or whatever else it is. So what happens is when you heat plastic, it releases those phthalates. And those phthalates, when you ingest them and you put them in your body, they function as phytoestrogens or false estrogens. And they function as hormones. They disrupt your hormonal system. So when you store water in a hot place, like you have a plastic container, and like I said, even the kind of plastic containers that are designed for water, but when you put them in places that are hot, like over 70 degrees, you're starting to release those phthalates and some of the other substances that the plastic is made of that winds up getting in the water, and especially if the water is chlorinated. So you got to be careful about where you store your water. So you got to store it someplace cool, someplace with not a lot of sunlight, unless of course you have glass bottles that you're storing it in, because the sunlight, the UV radiation, ultraviolet radiation, will tend to kill whatever bacteria that's inside of it. And of course, if you can afford to get it, you can get a stainless steel water drums, and that's a little bit different. You have to put the water and you store it, and you have to rotate it. And what I mean by that, Brother Rich, is that when you put water in a bottle, let's say you have a 5 gallon container,
Yeah.
you don't want to just put that 5 gallon container, Brother Rich, and just keep it there and just let it sit for a long period of time. You
Okay.
want to take that 5 gallon of water, you want to use it,
Hmm.
drink it, put it in your refrigerator, pour it out, and then immediately refill that bottle with new water so that your water is always cycled, so that it's not standing there for long, like a year, and it gets stagnant. So
Yeah.
this way you don't have to use things called water stabilizers. So yes, water is the first thing that you have to have. Emergency water, 1 gallon of water per person per day for one solid week. And that's, I want to stress, y'all, that's a minimum. That is not, if you want to know what I'm looking right now at 40 gallons right here, right? There's only two of us here. I'm looking at 40 gallons. It's gallons of water all over the house. I'm saying that that's more than enough for one week for what we need to do.
Hmm.
I'm saying that if you can do it, then you must do it, because we don't have that. Brother Rich, I'm not too sure if you know. You probably do. You know what Donald Trump did to FEMA, right? I'm sure you've heard of what Donald Trump has kind of denuded FEMA and made it
Yeah.
into, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, we don't have that. We don't have that safety net. We barely had a safety net to begin with, before. But we ain't got that safety net anymore, brother. We are now really, really on our own. Donald Trump cut the grant money that you get after disasters. He cut the response money. He cut everything. And who is that going to hurt the most? When he made those cuts, we're the ones who are going to get cut the deepest for it. So
Hmm.
having that emergency water in your house and having the ability to store water, again, if you can't store 40 gallons for yourself, then try to get that 1 gallon of water per person per day. And you got to have the water filters. You got to have them. You have to have the water filtration devices just as much as you have to have the water.
Once again, I want to give a shout out to everybody in the chat. We almost had 1,000 people. Make sure you share this to the people you love, family. I think this is very important considering the changes that we are seeing taking place all over the world, family. The wars that are going on. There's meteorites hitting Georgia. We're seeing meteorites in broad daylight. There's a lot of things going on right now that I'm not saying to be fearful of, but I'm saying is to be aware of your surroundings. One thing I want to mention before I ask this question, and shout out to everybody in the chat. Very good, sophisticated chat room that I have. Aton Edwards, one of the best in the YouTube community. Somebody said something interesting, and I never thought about this. We see what's going on with the flood, and this person said, "I'm looking into getting a life raft." Now, do you have one? And
What?
a life raft? Well, do you have one, and what you think about that idea? With in terms of flooding, you got a life raft. What's your have you ever? Do you know people in the community that have life rafts? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a good idea, especially if you live in a flood zone, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you absolutely need to have some sort of a way to get away around a flood. You know, um, Flooding is something it's the most common emergency. It's the emergency that you're going to see the most.
Hmm.
So having the ability to get into a life raft and jet is a hell of a lot better than the option. The other option is you have to wade through floodwaters, which is really bad. I just see somebody pop up, especially for us out here in Texas. Yeah, in Texas, in the southern states where you have coral snakes and things like that,
Mm.
when you have to wade through floodwaters, not only are you dealing with the rushing floodwaters that can take you out, it only takes a few inches of water to knock away a car, let alone a person. But when you're moving through floodwaters, they're usually filthy, absolutely filthy. They're
Yeah.
filled with chemicals, they're filled with sewage. People wind up getting small cuts on their legs, and you can get a disease, staph bacteria that develops into a thing called necrotizing fasciitis, which is the flesh eating disease. So wading through waters is not something that's desirable. You do not want to wade. So if you can get a raft and you can move through the waters in a raft or a canoe, or even if it was an inflated mattress, you are way better off than moving through floodwaters and also maybe exposing yourself to power lines, right? Because like in a lot of times you'll find in floodwaters that there are exposed power lines because they're down power lines, and there are people who get electrocuted that you never hear about because they're standing in water that's been electrified. So flood waters are extremely dangerous, as we just saw what happened in Texas, where you have over 100 people that got caught up in that, and having a raft is a great idea. So yeah, I would absolutely recommend that. I used to have one when I was in New York. I don't have one here in Toronto, but let me tell you this much though: it's something that I would absolutely have if I was worried about floods. You know, absolutely, I'd own one. Mhm.
You know, being aware of what's happening with the Earth's magnetic field, and if something's about to go down, a lot of times the animals, because they are not distracted with the BS that we are distracted with in our everyday life, and they don't worry about paying bills like us, so they don't have the cortisol running through their body that the average person has. They are in tune with nature, strictly nature, and they said when them tsunamis hit, I think Fukushima that time, uh, the animals knew to get the hell out of Dodge before anybody else did. I want to talk to you in terms of disaster, survival, and being disaster preparedness, or just being prepared. How important is it, Aton, to stay in communication with your local animals? And I'm going to give you an example. Let's say if you have a backyard and you have birds that come in your backyard, you may have cats, you may have rabbits, you may have squirrels, you may have something. Now, if you're constantly feeding or maybe just communicating, like people in New York, they give the pigeons bread and stuff like that. You will notice strange behavior in these animals. If you are accustomed to communicating with them, you will know when something's off about them. When, hey, I've communicated with this animal for 60 days straight or a year straight. Now something's off. Do you think that could be an effective means besides everything we know of, and relying on a newscaster to know when something is about to go down, to stay in communication with our local animals?
Oh yeah, that's an indigenous thing too.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of indigenous Americans, Aboriginal Americans, and also Africans, right? And animals have senses. We don't. Our senses are not as developed as some animals. So,
Mm-hmm.
like for instance, it is very, very common to before earthquakes that dogs start to bark,
Mm-hmm.
and you see animals start to act skittishly.
Mm-hmm.
Birds start to fly in different directions. They don't fly in patterns. They just start to fly all over the place.
Right, right,
And you
right.
know that there's organs inside of a bird's inside of the brains and in its brain stems
Mm-hmm.
where birds are very acutely aware of the Earth's magnetic field and
Yes.
any disruptions in it. So what you're talking about, brother, is like is very aboriginal, right? It's very ancient, and to watch the signs and trackers and people who are skilled in bushcraft and bushcraft is the study of survival in the outdoors. And one of the things that we learn in bushcraft is to watch the animals and to always pay attention to the way that the animals are behaving because the animals can sometimes signal a threat that you can't even see,
Right.
hear, or
Right.
smell. So it's very, very important to be, once again, brother, you're going back to like what I'm saying. It's a holistic discipline, right? And if you see it like that, then you see it holistically, and you don't just see it again. Go bags, go bags. What you said is just as important, and this kind of falls into an area called situational awareness, right?
Mm,
And
right.
increased levels of situational awareness. And I mean, how can I describe it? Because you're a young brother, but I go back to the days of a television show called Kung Fu, and it might sound silly to you, but the fact of the matter is that I've studied the martial arts for the better part of my life,
Mm-hmm.
and that's one of the things that you learn in the martial arts is to develop your senses in order for you to kind of get a sense to see something that you might not see with your eyes, but that you can sense. So being attuned to the animals around you, being attuned to your environment in that way is an absolute skill that if you don't have, that you must develop. And if you and don't discount it, I'm glad you brought that up because it is literally something that people need to learn how to do and to watch the animals and watch the birds, watch the insects, watch how they move. And when you see them moving in a way that you didn't see them before, you're probably on the cusp of something happening.
You see this comment right here. The brother So Genius said, "Leave the world behind. Remember the deers." That's what made me ask the question, brother, because the
Ah,
deers in my backyard have been moving different.
mm,
So I'm wondering why they're moving different. They're getting closer to my property than they've ever been, and they just look a little more confused than they've been before. So I said, let me
mm.
ask this brother what he think about, the animals that communicate with them, because they're just moving a little, they're not as scared of humans as they were before. They're like moving, inching a little closer. And I'm like, ain't this motherfucker supposed to run when he he ran before when he see me. Now he's just standing there like this, like, you know
Mm.
what I'm saying? So I'm like, let me ask Aton this question about the animals. So that's why I'm glad.
That's just
So yeah,
That's distressing, though. That's distressing. I'm beginning to see the signs in a lot of the natural systems. I see less insects. There's just certain things that I'm beginning to notice that I know that there's something going wrong. And that not to stray off into some other kind of subjects, but a lot of this has to do with recognizing the earth as a system.
yeah,
And we knew that the earth was a system. I'm
mm,
talking about in terms of Africans and indigenous people. We never separated ourselves from the earth. We always knew that the earth is a dynamic and living system, and that these magnetic fields and things that go on that move through us, pass through us, and all of the different living animals and different insects on the planet.
right,
And when you're connected to that, then you can sense it. There's a scientist. His name is Rupert Sheldrake, right?
yeah,
And
morphic resonance, yeah,
morphic resonance. There you go. And Dr. Sheldrake, and people laughed at him about that, but it was based on something called the 100th monkey syndrome, right? And it was a bunch of anthropologists observing monkeys on an island one day, and the monkeys didn't know how to crack coconuts. So one day, and it was a group of islands, and so one day the anthropologists noticed, hey, these monkeys are cracking coconuts with rocks on our island. They call up the other anthropologists and say, hey, do your monkeys know how to, a nearby island, they know how to crack these rocks, crack these coconuts with these rocks? No, they don't. They can't even open the coconuts. And then a few days later, the monkeys on the other island are cracking coconuts with rocks. Then they call up another island right nearby. Did the monkeys on that island crack? So what happened is then those monkeys were cracking. So there is a thing called morphic resonance. I wholly believe that. I am a scientist, and so I'm looking at this from a scientific perspective, and also the holistic perspective. I
mm,
believe that all things are interconnected. There's a scientist. His name is a physicist. His name is Paul Dirac, and Paul
mm,
Dirac said that when you pick a flower, you
mm,
disturb the nearest star. And what he was speaking about was really, from my interpretation of it, that I know that you've spoken about this on your show and previous programs, quantum entanglement in the quantum realm. And we don't explore that, but we're beginning to understand the quantum realm. We wouldn't have this computer if people didn't have an understanding of it. So again, once we fall back into this is literally the holistic part. The more that you understand, the more that you know, the better you're going to be able to deal with a disaster, because you're going to have all of these tools to not only know what to do when it happens, but to feel it coming, right? And I can tell you stories about 9/11, and King Simon can too, because what King Simon knows is that before 9/11, I'm talking about a while before it, King Simon and I were talking about the World Trade Center being attacked by airplanes and being destroyed. And we used to warn people about it. You ask King Simon about how one particular forum that King Simon produced, where we had a brother from Jamaica come, and it was a big joke between King Simon and I, where he said, "I mean, Airtime just want to make people wear the gas mask,"
mm.
right? And we were talking about the World Trade Center. It's like, yo, this is what's going to happen, and people are going to use anthrax. Let me tell you something. It's not just the data that drove me to make conclusions on the air about it, that what month it would happen in, the location, the method, all of this stuff we discussed before it happened. It's because I felt it, right? And that's morphic or cosmic resonance or whatever you want to call it. and that gives you the extra edge. And you know that there's a and you guys talk about this a lot. You know that there's a whole wing that was within the intelligence community and the Central Intelligence Agency in the KGB before it was the FSB, in MI6, and all of these different branches that were using people who were remote sensors, who would literally meditate and muse about these disasters. And then they would write them down. They called them super forecasters.
Mm,
And they're still in employment right now, right? I know that a lot of the audience knows about the gateway process. Um, they've talked about that before. All of this stuff, I actually knew the colonel who was in charge of the New Earth Battalion, who was one of the. There's a movie called "The Men Who Stare at Goats," right? And
mm,
this movie with George Clooney was about him and the battalion that they had in the U.S. military called the New Earth Battalion, that was studying all of this kinds of stuff, sensing emergencies before they come, meditating on things. So none of this stuff, it used to sound hokey to people, but it's not. It's something that you have to embrace if you want to be holistic and you want to be thorough about it. And that's the way I go. So, I'm glad that you have that situational awareness thing working with you about this kind of stuff.
what do you think about these here? Let me put this on the screen. My brother Aton. In terms of, our phone lines go down. Will we have like these walkie talkies that we could communicate nationwide? Do you have any of these? What do you think about having these in a situation that we're talking about?
Now, rapid radios are fine when everything is okay. But unfortunately, rapid radios use cellular networks to
Oh,
communicate. They use
wow.
cellular towers and they also use SIM cards.
Thank you for telling us. Thank you.
So the thing is that when everything is okay, then rapid radios are good, right? But when things are not so okay, like for instance, that they're talking about sleepers in the United States and all of that, the sleepers have always been there. We're going to see major cyber attacks over the course of the next few years, maybe in the next few months. And one of the biggest targets for cyber attacks are the communications grid, cellular networks. And when the cellular networks go down, if you use one of these kinds of rapid radios that use SIM cards, you're not going to be able to communicate with anybody. The only thing that you can really rely on, the only thing that you can really rely on in a major calamity where the telecommunication systems go down is a ham radio, right? Now, ham radios required. I just literally taught a ham radio class a few
Is
days
there a
ago.
website I could go to real quick while you talk about that?
Yeah, if you go to our website, it's afroprepnow.com. Like it's
No, in
afroprepnow.com,
terms
right?
of the ham radio, do you like? I want to
Oh,
look.
to the ham radios, that would be the ARRL, the American Radio League, ARRL.org. And then you could learn about ham radio stuff. ARRL.org, right? There you go. So when you pull that up, and that basically can give you like a walkthrough on what ham radio is and how you can get involved with it. And I encourage everybody out there to become a ham radio operator simply because in a disaster, this is the only way that you're going to be able to communicate. The rapid radios are great, again, when the grid is okay. But when the communication networks are down, you're not going to be able to use those things. They're like an alternative. They kind of remind me of the old walkie talkies that people used to have. I forgot the
But
Motorola.
Nextel.
Nextel, that's what they remind me of. They're very much like the Nextels, except they use a SIM card.
Right,
See?
right.
So no, so a lot of people are kind of confused with these because they think that they can use them when everything goes down, but no, it doesn't. It's Let me tell you something. It's very raw. When there's a real calamity and there's a real disaster, the only other thing that you can use besides those is a sat phone, right? And that's a phone that connects with the satellite, like Starlink or something else where the signal can bounce. Generally speaking, when you're working with a ham radio, you're working with something that, depending on like how what type of ham radio that you have, whether it's a base radio, right, or a
Mhm.
handheld. But the fact of the matter is, when you learn how to use them properly and you learn how to connect with these things, devices called repeaters, that basically can take the signal and bounce it from one repeater to the next, from one city to the next city. Like technically, if you like, when you get a small handheld ham unit of about 5 watts, that by using repeaters, you can talk to someone who's all the way on the other side of the city. When you learn how to do it, when you learn how to kind of like tie into the frequencies, learning the call signs and all the different things that you need to learn to be a ham radio operator. But you can't do that with these other radios. So I don't recommend for any folk out there that are watching tonight to buy those. You can buy them, but just use them in the proper way when you don't want to use your cell phone. But if you buy them and you think you're going to get away with using them during a disaster where the cellular networks are down, you're going to be
Well,
sorely mistaken.
Aton, they don't sell the ham radios on this website. This is
No, they don't. Oh no, if you want to buy a ham radio, but the first thing you got to do before you even get a ham radio is you got to learn how to use it, because again, that there's a trick to it. The AARL is an institution where you can learn how to get the license that you can become a user, right? So when you go to now, if you want to look at a ham radio, all you got to do is go to Amazon and then just look up a Yaesu base station, Yaesu base station,
hold on. We doing this in real time.
real time.
We doing
Y
this
A
in
E
real. Hold on,
S.
hold on, hold on. Let me pull up the website.
Mhm.
All right, how do you spell it?
Yaesu ham radios, and you can just put
Y
that in,
A E S U. Okay, here you go.
right? So pull those up, and then you'll see what they look
It's
like,
telling me
right?
about nutritional yeast. Oh shit. Why? Hold up. Y
Yaesu ham
A.
radios.
Okay, here we go.
All right. So you're going to pull up. Okay. So what I'm looking at right now, I see a base unit in the center picture. That's what it looks like to me, although it's real tiny on my screen. And then I see two handheld units. So if you click onto that one in the center, right, that's a base unit. Now, that's something that you need. That's something that you'd have in your house, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when you buy a base unit, it comes with a bunch of other things too. You got to have an antenna. You got to have, of course, the power source.
Mm-hmm.
You got to have a particular type of meter that you use to kind of read the antenna so that when you tune it properly. So there's a trick to learning how to use a ham radio properly, and it takes a little while. If you want to know what the ARCA study is, there's a certain group of books that you can read. You can learn how to work it, and you can learn how to take the test to become an operator in about 2 weeks.
Right.
You find what's called a VT, which is a volunteer technician that will actually test you, and then you get your ham license. And then it takes about 2 to 3 weeks for you to get it from. You get a call sign from the FCC, and then when you learn how to use it, you learn how to connect to the repeaters. You learn how to like get a really good antenna, because let me tell you something: a ham radio is only good as the antenna that you get with it.
Mm.
So when you get a ham radio, people think, oh, mine has like, for instance, we're looking at like, I don't know, I can't see the wattage on that. So the power that they use is measured in watts. So generally speaking, if you want a ham radio that you should communicate with somebody across the country, let's say you wanted to talk to,
This
you're
is
in Atlanta,
50 watts. This is 50 watts right here.
50 watts. Okay, I can't see that. So if you wanted to talk to somebody in California with your ham radio, right?
Yeah.
That particular one, you could do that in any kind of a disaster. But it would depend upon the antenna that you have, right? It depends on the setup. It depends on where you live. It depends on obstructions. It depends on time of day. So you have to know the specifics on how to set up an antenna so that you can communicate with that person all the way across the country. But if you set it up right and you get the right kind of antenna with a 50-watt unit, listen, let me tell you something. That signal can skip easily across the country, easily across all of North America, the United States. You'd get people in Mexico
Wow.
if you know how to hit them and if you know how to play with those frequencies, right? So, but it's all in the antenna. So that's the thing that I can tell you in a quick way,
Okay.
all
So
about the antenna.
do they sell the best place to get the antennas? We got that.
Oh, they
Where's
get
that?
packages. You get packages with, like, when you get a base station, you get a beginner's base station, it'll come with an antenna, right?
Well, this
Now,
comes with an antenna, you saying?
I can't see because the writing is so small on my screen. That unit might come if you get like that unit might come with an antenna. But what I'm saying is when you get a beginner's base station or a starter base station unit, it will come with an antenna. But
Right.
again, because ham radio, brother, it's a detailed skill. And I can only go through but so much tonight in terms of the details, because it's like there's a little bit of electrical theory that you have to learn. You have to learn the difference between frequency and wavelength. And
Yo.
so that you can actually learn what hertz is, like amplitude, and all of the different definitions, because like you transmit on different wavelengths. You transmit on high frequency wavelengths. You transmit on very high frequency wavelengths, frequency wavelengths. You transmit on ultra high frequency wavelengths, and then if you're dealing with satellites and stuff, you transmit on
Yo,
microwaves.
yo, Aton, real
Yeah.
quick. I'm sorry to cut you off. We should do a YouTube series where you teach people how to use this on my channel. What you
Oh, I
think
can do
about
that.
that? All right. So listen, family. This is fire. This is what you call really, really making sure you good and making sure you off the grid. If we listen, family, I just want y'all to know we got about 1,200 people in here. Say I bring this brother Aton on for 4 week episode for every week. I bring him on every Monday or something. We're gonna do 4 shows once a week, and we're gonna really learn how to use radios that are off the grid. um Number one, I want to make sure y'all are interested. Number two, we got to make sure we support the brother because he can't be on here. I can't have people come on here and dedicate their time and the information that took them over 20, 30 years to study and research, and we don't support them. So I'm just letting y'all know, if say we start the first show, if I share the brother's Cash App or the brother's PayPal or whatever way we could effectively donate to this brother, I need the brother to tell me your people are taking care of me. Otherwise, everybody's lives are busy. We have families and everything else. So I'm just letting y'all know, I would love for the brother to come on here and really give us the game. But I'm just letting y'all know, when we start the first episode, just make sure y'all take care of the brother, so the brother can say, "Oh shit, they love and appreciate me. I'm good. I'm gonna give them all the game because I want him to give us all the game." All right, fam. So I'm just throwing it out there. Let y'all know how the game go. All right. Let's take care of the brothers and sisters who come on this platform and give us the game on how we survive and how we thrive out here. All right. Just wanted to say that. But yeah, Aton, this is magnificent, man.
Hey,
I'm
listen, this is the tip of the
yeah,
iceberg.
yeah,
What I want to say is to say that, listen, like I said, I have a baseline. Like I'm cool. I'm working with a number of other organizations and groups and
yeah,
individuals across the country, right? And like we have a group called the Harlem Emergency Network that's based in Harlem
yeah.
that has a radio program. It's headed up by a brother who I have mad respect for this brother. His name is Brother Wali, and he was a submariner. This is one of the first black submariners that were in the submarines, and he was a communications officer with the Navy, right?
Right,
And he works with a brother named Bob Ponce, who's with the Harlem Emergency Network.
right.
And we are literally working and grinding now to
Mm.
build a infrastructure that never existed before within the black community to
Whew.
intertie all of us together across the country. My Afro Prep Now program, y'all can go to afroprepnow.com and you can see it. And we are literally working together so that we can build this and fuse everybody. We want everybody to have a baseline, communications baseline, emergency water baseline, emergency food baseline. That every single dynamic that is involved in the creation of a sustaining infrastructure, that we know how to build it. We have the right people, we have the technicians, we have the scientists, we have the doctors, and everybody is ready to do it. If the audience is ready to do it, then we are there and we will
Yo,
make it happen.
yo, Aton, have you covered this aspect? All right. So say we say we got our ish together, right? We got these radios. Say power goes off or whatever, right? Or well, I don't know, because you know what I was about to say. I'm thinking about things on the spot, family. So allow me to contemplate. But I was gonna say, should we get Faraday cages for our phones so we can't be spied on? But if the grid is down, then they can't spy on us regardless, though, right?
Well, okay, so you need everybody has to have a Faraday pouch in their phone at this point,
Right.
especially if you're an activist. Because what's happening is that the police now. I had a meeting with my Afro Prep Now group about 2 weeks ago, and we had a wonderful brother. His name is Robert Boyle, who was one of the lawyers that helped to get a lot of the Black Panthers released, political prisoners
Mm-hmm.
released from prison.
Mm-hmm.
And Bob Boyle came on the call to explain to us what the rules are in terms of what the government's program and information collection and gathering, right? So the way that we live now is that we live in a surveillance state. And because of the Patriot Act, the government has every right to collect information, all the information that they ever want to collect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So every phone has a 15-digit number. It's called an ISMI number, right? Which is basically a number that the phone has to ping to cell towers so that you can identify the phone. So effectively, what the police have are devices that can pick that number up, and they're called stingrays.
Right.
And they basically can pick up that number when the phone is. It's basically
Mm.
it imitates the cell tower. So your phone thinks it's a cell tower, and it pings this 15-digit number to this device, and
Right.
then by that pinging it to that device can open up your phone and pull out every single bit of data, every text,
Shit.
every
Woo.
picture, every single bit of data on your phone, even the data that was deleted from your phone that you think is gone,
Damn.
it can be pulled up. So when you go into a protest and when you go out into a crowd
Yeah.
and you see police flying drones, recognize that now those particular devices, those MC catchers, those devices, those stingrays can now be mounted on drones. So
Right.
they are literally picking up. They have people walking around the crowds with wands, and they are literally picking up your information on your cell phones so that they can have a list of people that they know that they need to surveil, people that they would presume to be
Damn.
insurgents. So black folks need to know this. When you go to a protest, do not bring your personal cell phone to the protest. Leave it at home.
Wow.
Get
This
a
is
burner phone. Do not bring. And if you're going to bring it, I would suggest not to bring it. But if you must, then you got to have a pouch. Listen, I did a television show 15 years ago. It was called Track Me If You Can. It was with the Discovery Channel.
mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you something. It had a really kind of goofy ending, but that was because of the lawyers that didn't want us to go hardcore.
Mm.
But there's information in that show that you should look at that's valid now because it's telling you that this is 15 years ago that we're living in a surveillance state.
Mm-hmm.
And now the level of surveillance that we are under right now is extreme. And then I can tell you that within our community is even more extreme. So get that Faraday pouch, get it now because you should not leave home without it, especially if you're around a lot of crowds and
Mm.
especially if you go to places that you see a lot of people because
Man.
that's airports, places like that. They're always picking up listen, brother, they got they have those devices set up in grocery stores in New York City. I don't even know if they're NYPD. Sometimes they're criminals. Sometimes they use the rifle chips in your credit cards
Right.
and your bank cards that they're scanning for that so that they can get your information so they can, clean your bank account out or charge things up. So when you walk into a store and you see that little array of cameras and sometimes little mysterious devices that you can't quite identify, that
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes that's what's there. So having that Faraday pouch is protecting you from getting all of your information pulled out.
Mm.
So yeah, this is where we're living. This is how we're living now. This is the Black Mirror generation. I
Wow.
know you watch the show, so
Yeah. Do do
see,
do you think with all technology, the invisible signals, the radio signals that are being beamed everywhere that we can't see with our eyes, Wi-Fi, radio, all types of signals. Do you think this, because we talked a little earlier about the animals' ability to recognize things, do you think this is even throwing off the animals and throwing off things that wasn't normally thrown off? Do you think the technology is completely throwing everything out of whack in that terms?
absolutely. I believe, I've seen what microwave energy can do. I remember when I was in college, and when I was even younger, a young kid, man, I was obsessed with lasers, and this was when I was in junior high school, right? I wanted to learn everything about lasers, and so I went and learned everything about lasers, and then I went I said, well, okay, I've learned everything I need to know about lasers. Now let me graduate to something else. And I went to masers, which is basically the same. Masers are light, lasers is an acronym, light amplified by stimulated emission of radiation. Maser is the same thing, microwaves amplified by stimulated emission of radiation. So I got into microwave tech. And when you see what microwave energy does to a cell, right? A blood cell, you see what it does. I'm going to give the best example is what microwave energy does in your microwave in itself, right? So you put your food in that microwave, and that radio energy excites the molecules in the water molecules in whatever food that you have, and then it heats it up.
Right.
So that's what microwaves do at a certain level of energy, right? You have a magnetron inside of that microwave that does that. So imagine where you have these microwave antennas all over the city and you have birds flying near them and you're told not to stand close to microwave antennas. Microwave antennas and different microwave devices emit high levels of microwave energy that does damage to human tissue. Now, when it's at lower levels, like when we use it in terms of like larger broadcast signals, it's a little bit different. But when it's at higher levels, like I'm going to give you an example. Certain iPhones, the iPhone, I think it was from the iPhone 10, if I'm not, but look it up just in case I'm wrong, because I don't like giving. I'm a real stickler for bad information, brother, and there's a lot of really bad information that I see that's being dispensed on the internet. But I want you guys that are watching this to look up and check if it is the Apple phone iPhone 10 that it emits twice the radiation that it should, the microwave radiation, and the FCC says it's not even legal, but the FCC gave Apple a pass because it's Apple. So when you're holding that phone up to your head and you're making phone calls all day long, and even when you stick the antennas in your ear, like when you stick the Bluetooth,
Oh
you're
my
not getting away from that microwave energy. You think that you are. You're just basically directing it right at your head.
God.
It's
Right.
the same. It's the same energy. So what are we talking about? It's like, of course, it does. It excites cells. It produces damage. It's negligible at some levels, but I'm gonna give you an example, another example. It's something that I think that we're going to see because of what ICE is doing on the streets. Sooner or later, the United States government is going to roll out a piece of equipment for crowd control. And this device is called the active denial system, right? And so what the active denial system does is that it takes microwave radiation, has a little dish on it, and it reflects it of a certain wavelength at a crowd. And when it's exposed to your skin, that microwave energy feels like you're burning alive. It's best described as from people that I know that have felt it. It feels like you just opened up a blast furnace and stood in front of it. If you stand in front of it for long periods, it feels like you're burning alive. And during the testing, some people have died from it. I think you haven't seen it used yet because it's a press thing. If they started using it on people now, it would make the United States look bad. But if the riots start, and you see what's happening with ICE, if we start to see some real serious riots like what we saw during George Floyd, I can guarantee you they're going to roll out the active denial system. And so we have to know about these things. We have to know about all of this stuff because all of this stuff is going to be used for the most part against us. And so, so in a long way, yeah, it does harm. We have to be careful about that. We have to know how to shield ourselves from it.
Indeed. I want to get to we about to hit the hour mark. I want to get to a couple of questions. I see the chat is pretty alive tonight. I want to get to a couple of questions from the chat for this brother before we get out here. What a show, right, y'all? What a show tonight. What a show tonight. Great show. Just to be aware of certain things. And not only that, to tap into our sovereignty. Wouldn't it feel good to communicate off the grid, off the network? You know what I'm saying? Regardless of whether something happens or not, just to have a way of communicating outside of the cellular network. That is like a great feeling. So I definitely look forward. I remember back in the day, my uncles used to use the CB radios in their car way
Yeah,
back
I
in
do.
the day. This is in the 80s. This is like in 88, 89. They had the CB radios. So, yeah,
I
this.
did too, man. Making a fool of myself. I used to be called, and not only was I making a fool of myself back because this is again, I'm older, so
Yeah.
there used to be a song. It was almost like a rap song called Convoy. So at the time, I got a CB, even though I was a ham guy, and I would get on there and I would talk even with the southern accent, breaker breaker 1-9, because that's what everybody did. So yeah, CBs were big, but the only thing about CBs was the range. You just couldn't get but so far a
Mhm.
signal. But ham, let me tell you something, brother. That if four of you guys, like, when you get together and if you want to do like the class, like what you wanted to say, people, they can come over to Afro Prep and they can take a class at Afro Prep now. But if you want to do a class for your show, if you get when you get your license, when you get your ham radio license,
Mhm.
all it would take is four of you in that group that got their license, and then you can get a registered FCC. You could have a club, and you could have it could be the Radiohead Rich Club. I don't know
Oh
what you want to
shit.
call it,
That's
but it would be you would have
dope.
your own ham radio, literally network. That's a ham radio club that you would have it be official,
Yeah, that's
right?
fire, family. Y'all hear
Right.
this? So, hold
So
on. I'm sorry.
so and
I'm sorry. Real quick. How many people can I have in that club?
no, in order for you to have the club, you need four people,
I know, but
but you
how?
can have
What?
you can have as many people as you want.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. I roll deep. That's what I'm asking.
And then when you start getting into, like, there's what's called an extra class, which, in order for you to become, like, there's different levels of amateur operator, right? There's a technician's class, which is just the regular level that everybody can come into, right? And you're
Mhm.
operating on high frequency. And so, but then there's the extra level is when you're in an extra class and you can operate with more power, and it's almost like you have a damn radio station in that respect, right? So the thing is, but there's more to learn. It's not like, you got to jump through hoops. So I can say, in terms of the difficulty of learning how to become a technician, it's a little bit of basic math, some science, and then that's it. Most people, it takes a 74 to pass the test, right?
Wow.
So it takes a 74 to pass the test. So once you get past that, then you can take other tests to kind of grade you up, and you have more latitude in terms of what the FCC allows you to do. But if you wanted to, like, broadcast into a big way, man, you get that extra license, and you could broadcast it a hell of a lot more power than you would normally be able to do it, and different frequencies. So what I'm saying is, it's advantageous for you because you would have your own Radiohead Rich
Hmm.
radio club.
This sounds like destiny. This sounds like destiny, fam.
That's all it
This
takes, four
has to
people.
happen. This has to happen, family. Thank you so much. Hey, Tom, make sure y'all take care of this, brother. It's gonna happen. Off the grid radio. Oh, come on. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I'm glad they said, man. Man, if I'd known you'd been like that, you could have taken the class, and you'd have been on your way to getting your license. I
I'm,
just finished a group of people,
hey, I'm
it,
gonna call
it
you tomorrow.
and let me tell you something. This is the way, but you see that the enthusiasm, because I can't see what's going on in your screen,
Right.
the enthusiasm that you have for this. I hope that the people that are watching now, that they have the same enthusiasm, because this is empowering. Let me tell you, one of the most important things that we have to have, and I try to tell this all the time, and King Simon will be a testament to this. It's all about intelligence, right? That you got to have the intel in order to do things. Like, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. Every day we have a president, Orange Trumpicus, right? The
Yeah.
farting king. And he gets a thing called a PDB, which is a personal daily briefing, right? Personal daily briefing. Now, he doesn't read it, of course, because I'm not too sure how well he can read. But considering that I know that he can read some, but he just says, no, 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 let somebody else read it. They can read it for me. All right. But that's his intelligence briefing. Intelligence is a huge commodity for disaster and emergency for us, for our people. Case in point, you saw the floods in Texas a few days ago. Hundreds of people died, right? If they had had the intelligence that there was going to be a flood, we wouldn't have had hundreds of deaths.
Yeah.
Why did we have hundreds of deaths? Because Orange Trumpicus decided to cut the National Weather Service, the amount of people that he had working in the Weather Service. He cut 600 key people that needed to be there so that they could watch the different weather fronts across the country and relay that information to the different municipalities. So there was no intelligence for this flood. There were no sirens, no advance, and consequently, people died. In our cases, we must have advance. What is the best way to do that if the cellular networks go down? It is ham radio. because you are not tethered to anything with ham radio. Let me tell you something. Even if you don't have repeaters, let me get into the details for you, brother, because if that excited you,
Mm-hmm.
listen. You want to get grungy with this?
Mm-hmm.
Let's get grungy, or let's get gorilla with it. You get yourself a motorcycle. You
Mm-hmm.
get yourself a small Honda generator, gas power generator. You get yourself a small solar power generator,
Mm-hmm.
and you get a base station. If you know all of the bells and whistles and you know how to set that up, dude, once you know how to do this, you are now a mobile radio station. You get to the highest point in your community and nobody can shut you off, because the fact of the matter is that your signal is going to bounce off of the ionosphere. If you
Woo!
cannot connect to repeat, your
Woo!
signal bounces off of the ionosphere. And if our little sun god, if Aton Ray is doing well that day and we get a little sunspot activity, that radio frequency energy is going to bounce off of the ionosphere and get even further away.
Damn. Y'all
This
hear
is
this?
what we're talking about.
Y'all, this is, oh my God.
See?
Yo, this is
So,
what we need, family. You know how I'm sorry. You know how we all talk about community, and I talk about building a social media platform so we can communicate. Man, F all of that. We need this. We need to be sovereign. We need to be independent. We need to be able to not be shut down regardless of what happens, even if a solar flare come through this mother effer. Oh my God, this is beautiful information. Go ahead, brother.
yeah, man, and this is what we have to have, because if we can coalesce like this without the cellular networks, right?
Yeah.
And then if we even get deeper and then we learn about Morse code so that we can communicate in Morse code. Now, the technician's class license doesn't provide you with the information. It does. You don't have to do it anymore. You don't have to learn Morse code. But if you learn Morse code, we can always stay in communication. And the thing is that if we can stay in a communication, we'll know what's happening. Give yourself an example. Most of the back in the day when we were when television signals were in the UHF and VHF band wavelength, right?
Yeah.
And you basically had broadcast TV after 9/11 when it went digital, but it was broadcast television. So here's the thing, right? Everything now is digital. So we're going piping through internet service providers and moving through routers and all this other stuff. So if the internet goes down, then everything goes down, right? But the one thing that won't go down, it is actually ham radio. That's the way that you can stay in communication. Is if you can stay in communications, you're never ever going to be at a disadvantage because you can see what's coming. And
Yeah.
if you can you imagine, as many people that are watching this now, right? Imagine if every single last one of them had a ham radio. If this internet goes down, this conversation could literally continue, just getting everybody's call sign, because guess what? Radiohead Rich has a radio club and he has every call sign of every single person in this chat. And we're going to scare up everybody on this line right now. We're going to get them all at this frequency. Yo, all jump out into this frequency. We're going to continue this conversation at this frequency that we use. This is what I'm talking about.
This is
And that is power. That is power.
that's power.
That's power. And
Wow.
this is why we're not encouraged to do this. We're encouraged to do exactly the opposite, to be dependent. And my thing, and King Simon will tell you, and King Simon will, this is what I have always taught. It is absolute independence.
Yeah.
I don't believe that we don't need FEMA. We don't need any of these different things. We need the information.
Yeah.
Another thing we don't need is, right? I'm a facilitator. Simon will tell you this too. He's a testament to this. I'm a facilitator of information. It's not about the individuals, it's the information. Follow the information, and that will set you free. It's
Mhm.
not people, it's not me, it's not you, it's not anybody. It's the information. We as a people, we as Black people, we need to know what we need to do. And if we do it, then we will all come together like this, because we will have the ability to do it in a natural, organic way where nobody's being taken advantage of. Nobody is able to pull people's chain. We're all working together for one thing: independence, right? And communications is the biggest freaking thing, almost next to water and air. So it's funny, you jumped ahead because like I have a protocol. So we go through the essentials. Boom, 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 boom. So it's food, water, first aid, and then lower down is communications. But communications is an essential, and we have to have the ability to do that. And if you have a ham radio, and I must not forget,
Yeah.
when you have that ham radio, when you have your base station,
Hmm.
you have to have the ability to keep it running if the grid goes down. So that there are many devices now available at a minimum amount of cost where you can have a power generator, which are solar generators. There's one now, I don't like to throw out names too much. Like I have a thing called an essentials list, right? That our members use. And in this essentials list is every single thing that you need to purchase and how much it costs. Now, there's one particular I don't like to talk about the brands a lot, because I'm not a spokesperson for the company. But one of the most popular, I will say, it's called Jackery. Jackery makes a really good emergency solar generator that you can plug all your devices in. Comes with Some of them come with like large solar panels. Some of them come with smaller solar panels. You can stick them out of your window if you live in an apartment. If you have a home, you can put them on your roof, and you can always keep your ham radio on. Right now, again, Rome wasn't built in a day, and you got to learn basic rules of electricity. You got to learn basic electronics to kind of know a few things like how power is measured in watts, and how we measure it in terms of a standing power supply, which is in watt hours. And if you take like a regular like 10-watt bulb, like I'm sitting next to a 10-watt light bulb, if it burns for 1 hour, you've burned 10 watt hours. If it burns for 10 hours, you've burned 100 watt hours. So batteries have the storage capacity measured in watt hours. So if you have a battery that has 1,000 watt hours in it, then you know that you could run this 10-watt light for 10 hours straight. And it's the same thing that goes for your ham radio. So if you have a ham radio that needs 50 watts and you have a battery with a storage capacity of 1,000 watt hours, then you'll know just how long that you could run that radio. So all of these things you got to learn. And like I said, Rome isn't built in a day. I can give you but so much in this way. But if you are committed to do these kinds of things, Brother Rich, then, I will make sure that we facilitate it. And like you said, hey, support us and support our work, because the more that you support us at afroprepnow.com, the more we can do. And believe me, there's a lot more that we can do. This is just the tip of the iceberg. If you enjoy this, then there's a whole bunch of other stuff that we can get. And if 1,000 people would commit to doing that, do you know what you'd have? I mean,
What? Tell me,
you
for 1,000.
no, but I mean, I don't know. I heard King Simon. It was something that I don't know if it was on your show, brother, or if it was on somebody else's. But I was listening to King Simon on something fairly recently, and I was because I work in an office right now. So my beloved, she has her she uses this as a hypnotherapy office, right? She's a hypnotherapist, and she's in the other room, and so I'm hearing King Simon, and he said something about Brother Aton with houses. He said something about homes. Anyway, the point that I'm trying to make is, listen, there are homes that you can purchase for low cost, disaster resistant homes. There are things that are out here that most of us don't know that we can connect with, but we need to connect with it. I'm going to tell you why. And this is jumping ahead, or not to get off schedule what you had planned. But listen, brother, we're at a point now. I spoke with a friend of mine from the intelligence community about 3 days ago.
Yeah.
And he's looking at my Facebook. He likes because he knows I'm doing this work and out there trying to get people prepared. And he says, Aton, I really commend you for what you're doing, because all we're talking about here down in Virginia is POTR this and POTR that. And he thought I knew what he was talking about. So Poner. And I'm like, what the hell are you talking about, man? Poner. What the hell is that? Boner? Like, I don't know what I thought it was some sort of a joke because he's a jokester. And he's like, oh, I thought you knew, because he knows I know these think tank people. He says, oh, it's point of no return. So that's what people are talking about. Now, I don't know what context that he meant it in, point of no return. I know this much, that a lot of what he deals with is AI, right?
Mm.
So we as a people, we got to understand something else too, that within the auspices of the power barons from of Silicon Valley, that there's a whole new world that's happening that we're not aware of. And if you've ever heard of Peter Thiel,
Yeah.
then you know that Peter Thiel and a group of his folk are trying to usher in a new era of that they've called it the Dark Enlightenment
Mm.
era. And that is where you have a kind of a techno feudal system where you have overlords, oligarchical overlords that rule not a democracy anymore. It is a monarch. It's almost like it's a techno monarchy where
Mm.
you have these oligarchs who rule. And so what we're headed for is like, I tell people at best where we're headed right now is at best we're headed for like a Judge Dredd type future. Now, for those of you who didn't see the movie Judge Dredd, not the one with Sylvester Stallone, there was another one that came out that everybody lived in this kind of like super depressed mega city that was like an uber ghetto. You can't even call it that. It was dystopian. It was a nightmare, Blade Runner-ish kind of an existence where people were just moving hand to mouth in this high-tech, low-tech city. That's what we're headed towards. And the powers that be are manipulating the system to move us into that direction. So if we as black people don't start making moves for ourselves, is to not only to become autonomous, and that is so that we can kind of exist on our own without the sustaining infrastructures that we are totally dependent upon. We're totally dependent upon the water that comes out of the sink, right? If we don't have that, then what do we do? If they're not filtering the water, if they're not purifying it, what do we do then? What
Mm.
do we do when food delivery stops? What happens then? We don't know what to do. We don't even know how to dress and to kill game. We don't know that. Most of us don't know how to grow our own food anymore. Most of us don't know how to process our own food. Most of us don't know how to deal with first aid and emergencies. We are totally, totally, totally dependent upon a system that never cared about us ever, that has a contempt for us at the highest levels. And believe me, I know it because I've interfaced with all of these people at the top of the pyramid. And so, what I'm telling all of the viewers tonight, that we as a black people, we have to do for ourselves like we never did before, as if Marcus Garvey's ghost was standing in the
Ooh, talk to me, Aton.
us
Talk
in
to me,
full
brother.
outfit
Come
and
on.
tell us straight up.
Come
If
on.
you can't do it, then go and die because everybody else is doing it. And it's time for you to rise like Marcus did. Remember, it was a black man, two black men that stabbed him in the back and that led him into the corners. That if they had not done that, right, then we would be living in a different world today. So what I say is to honor his legacy, honor what he taught us many years ago, and to become that self-sufficient people, that self-reliant people that this brother literally died and gave his life for. And so many others that did it before that. There's the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, who moved me into this path when I was a young boy. And my Uncle Johnny, who was with the Nation of Islam, handed me a book called The Fall of America. And he says, Aton, read this book. This is something you need to look at. I was, 7 years old when I picked that book up. And I looked at it, read it, and I said, wow. And at one point, one of the chapters that every black man and woman needs to carry with them at all times a survival kit because you don't know when America is going to collapse and you got to be ready when it does. And so, what have I taught? King Simon will tell you that everybody has to have that survival kit. All of these things that all of these people put themselves out for, from Malcolm to Martin to Fannie Lou to Medgar to Harriet Tubman to Sojourner. Let's just go down the
Come
list.
on, brother. Come on. Yeah.
To Bobby Seale,
Come on.
to everybody,
Come on.
we have brothers and sisters. We got one sister in Chicago who has got these Black Panthers. Her name is Layla Wills, and Layla has pulled together the old Black Panthers from Chicago. They are still ready. And let me tell you something. They are ready to report for duty. The people that stood against this oppressive society, they are ready to fight. What's wrong with us? Are we ready to stand for ourselves? Or are we just going to stand there and watch this Donald Trump and his new Gestapo sweep across the United States and stand there shaking our fists and talking about this is wrong? It's time to shaking our fist and wagging our fingers. We don't need to do that anymore. We don't even need to engage. What we need to do is to get ready. And this is the way we do it. Emergency water, emergency food, emergency first aid, emergency communications, emergency transportation, self defense, all of these different categories. Cover these categories, we get a baseline going. And let me tell you something, in 3 months, less than 3 months, we can have a community that is ready to ride through anything. And that's not just my goal, my comrades' goal, our goal here. Kendall, Cobb, and I, we grind and suffer to make this happen so that we can actually see this occur. My son, I mean, it is a struggle. Kendall's daughter, Brooke, it is a struggle. It is a fight. It is a war, right? And the thing is that we have to understand that. So if the soldiers are ready, then we're ready. And I can tell you that anything that you need to know, if I can't answer it, believe me, that we have the brothers and sisters who can. Some of the best doctors, the best lawyers, the best scientists. And when I talk about the best scientists, I don't want to name drop here, but let me tell you something. It is literally the biggest brains that we can muster up. And they all want us, they're all ready to help. It's up to us what we want to do. So like what you saying, yo, man, you want to do this radio club? It's going to happen, right? Make it happen.
I just,
If you want to,
it's funny. As soon as you said that, let me put this on. Like literally, the brother Aton just said, if you want to start a radio club, I'm gonna start it. We gonna get it popping, family. You know how I do. Radiohead Rich is gonna officially have a radio club that's off the grid, and it's gonna be popping, family. I'm gonna do my research and study, talk to Aton, but it's gonna be absolutely popping. Let me show you, son. As soon as Aton said that, this is my son. Let me. Don't pay. I'm not look at the. This is from Brother Robert. Hold up,
okay,
Brother Rich. Please consider starting a radio club. I'm all in. Peace, Brother Robert. That's an elder in our community. He supports pretty much everything I got going on from New York to Atlanta. And the brother, as soon as Aton said that, he texted me this at the same time about the radio club. The radio club is on and popping. It's the most popping off the grid black community in the whole world. Family, it's gonna be epic. Oh my God. Aton, I'm gonna have to call you soon. Listen, I gotta introduce you to Aton. There's this brother, and we were supposed to get some work started this year, but it got delayed. He's one of the best black farmers in the country. He has a company called Grow Where You Are. Absolutely amazing, brother. And we're gonna be doing a lot of work in the future. And I'm actually gonna be starting like a little mini farm in my backyard, probably next year. And I'm gonna introduce him to the community probably later this year or next year. But this is right in alignment with what I got going on with that brother, because I need all of us to be on board with this off the grid radio club so that we could communicate with. Imagine somebody calling, tapping in with the radio club and him helping somebody about how to plant something, or we got a lawyer here, or we got Aton here, or we, just it's what we've been waiting for. It's destiny. I appreciate you for coming on the show, brother. We're gonna have a great conversation on the phone either tomorrow or Thursday. No, tomorrow is Thursday, right? Either Thursday or Friday. I'm gonna give you a call. I gotta figure out what your schedule is, brother. But the Radio Club family is on and popping. I'm gonna get it popping. Y'all know how I do. Y'all seen how I did Stone Mountain. So y'all know if I say I'm gonna do something, I'm gonna do it. Y'all know if I say I'm gonna bring so and so on board, this person on board, it's on. And there's nothing. There's no off the grid community like this family with this energy. So it's on and popping. Aton, before we get out here, because I got to get out of here, let the family know your contact information. I know they going to holler at you about whatever you got going on, brother. I need the family to support you. Go ahead, brother.
all right. So listen, there's an easy way to do this. Like, if you want to know more, and just to let you know, brother, I support you doing this, and I'll get you on and popping real quick
Yeah.
with this, to kind of fast track you, because it would be wonderful if you had that radio club and you could have it well before September. So it's not, because like I said, but just keep this in mind. It can't just be you. You got to have like three other people that'll be doing it with you. So it's got to be, it just could be family. It could be your family. It can be whomever it is. If they have to be adults, they can't be children, but
No, I'm talking
they got to
about,
be.
do the people count? The people, because the people from the channel.
Oh yeah, the people from the channel, but you have to designate who are the people who are the operators of the channel
Okay,
that you're
I got
creating.
it. No
So
problem.
in
Yeah,
other words,
yeah,
you
that's not.
got three other people, like
Simon
just
gonna
for
be
an
one of
example,
them. King
could
Simon
be
gonna
King
be one of
Simon. King Simon would be the perfect guy. You,
them.
King Simon, and whomever else you wanted to have on it, and then
Yeah.
that would be the other two, right? So we'll get you on and popping with that. But if you want to support, the work that I do, the easy way to do it is to go to our website, and that is afroprepnow.com. I also have a book that's coming out in about a month or so. It's called Black Survival in the Age of Catastrophe. Afro Prep Now. It's also Afro Prep Now. But go to our website, and then you'll learn about who we are, what we do, and there's going to be some changes that you're going to see popping up. Strategic preparedness. If you want to donate, you can donate. You can go right down, scroll down the list, and donate to the site. If you want to join a class, you can join a class there. Watch the website because all of our classes roll out, and you can connect with me there. Also, you can connect with me on my Instagram. It is the real Aton Edwards at Instagram. I don't know how to even say it because I'm old and I don't know the lingo, but the real Aton Edwards is my Instagram. And, we can coalesce there. But if you are serious about getting ready, and I'm talking about getting ready as serious as you possibly can get, because we need to be very serious right now. Because like I told you, my friend in the intelligence community, what are they talking about? PONER, point of no return. That's what we've hit in terms of a lot of different things, in terms of the climate crisis, in terms of global conflicts, in terms of AI. All of these things are happening at once, and our Black community isn't ready to face them. If you want to get ready to face them, then hit us up at afroprepnow.com. Look at what we're doing, do what you want, donate, join the classes, and come on in, and we're going to make it happen for you.
Hey Tom, my brother, got so much to talk to you about. I definitely want you to come on the channel and show us how to connect with this radio thing. And we're gonna make sure we support you. We're gonna make sure we donate. And I appreciate you for the show. Amazing show. I mean, an absolutely amazing show tonight. And I want to thank everybody for tuning in. I know a lot of y'all got more questions. We're gonna do shows in the near future, so don't worry about it. Save your questions. We're gonna do a lot of shows in the near future, family. But thank you so much, Aton. Thank you for all the work. Thank you to King Simon in the chat. King Simon actually recommended you to me today. I called King Simon about doing a show, and he said to hook up with Aton. So I said, "Damn, I forgot about the brother Aton," and I was glad that he reminded me of you. So yeah, look how God works. Look how
Hey,
God
listen,
works,
you
family.
got to do it when you do a show. You got to bring Simon in so that we can see Simon because we got stories just to share. Because Simon, let me tell you something. Simon is a critical component within the context of this. Just to let your viewers know, you got to understand that when King Simon came into this, and over 2 decades ago, it was something that Simon did out of the love for his people, the love of his community, the level of dedication that Simon has, and a level of time and energy and sweat that Simon has put into this. It is epic. And Simon and I, we have stories. It'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry, but
Mm.
it'll let you know what kind of dedication that it takes to make certain things happen. So I hope that in the future, when we do this again, we got to pull in King Simon because King Simon has his own. We even have a whole thing that we do, Simon and I. And so I want to thank King Simon for bringing us together so that to make this happen. And like I said, we're gonna make this radio thing happen for you well before September, brother. It's not going to take you not nearly as long as you actually think.
Radiohead Rich radio show. Wow, look how God works. Somebody said Radiohead Rich. You were in the future when you picked your name. I guess so, but I'm happy. Wow, I'm happy. Listen, with that being said, Aton, I'm gonna give you a call tomorrow or Friday, my brother.
Yeah, holler at me, holler at me. We'll make it happen.
Appreciate
And
this.
I ain't playing. We move forward and we are going to make this happen. And before National Disaster Preparedness Month, to let you know, it's September.
Yeah,
So we're going to get you online with your license so that you can have it. That it's coming in September, so
gotcha.
that you can get your club together and just get your other two. So you got you, Simon. Just get your other two people, and you're good. You'll have your club.
I'm good. That's super easy. I have that. I already have that. So in my mind, I
Okay.
already have that. So family, it's a done deal. The Radiohead Rich Radio Club, off the grid, off the, this is post society type shit. You know what I'm saying? Post whatever happens, we here, we live, we communicating, we know what's going on. It's gonna be absolutely amazing. This is great. This is great stuff. Tomorrow, family, Queen of Fua, 9 o'clock. She will be here talking about food and nature and all that good stuff. Make sure you tune in tomorrow, 9 o'clock. Aton, I'm going to talk to you tomorrow, my brother.
All right, brother. Take it
All
easy.
right,
I'll
all
talk
right,
to you
take
then.
it. Peace.
Peace.
Once again, family, tomorrow, 9 o'clock, Queen of Four. Make sure y'all tune in. Wow, what a show, right, y'all? Wow. Wow. Wow, 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 wow. Oh, man, what a show. This was beautiful. This was beautiful. And I knew it was going to be great, but I didn't expect to wow, to get an idea like that, and the brother, what he dropped on us. I mean, this was it right here. One of the best shows of the year, hands down, whether we realize it now or we realize it 5 years from now. But remember, I said one of the best shows of the year. We may not realize it now. It's not advanced metaphysical concepts, but it is, and it's not even fear-based. It's not, we're just getting prepared for something bad to happen. It's about us taking back our sovereignty. Isn't that a good feeling? It got to be a good feeling to get off the grid. It got to be a good feeling to operate independently. It got to be a good feeling to learn how to grow our own food. It got to be a good feeling to know how to communicate without paying Verizon or AT&T or any of these huge telecom companies. That got to be a good. It's beyond just well, just in case this happens, we got to. It got to be an amazing feeling to generate water on our own. It got to be an amazing feeling to generate electricity on our own with solar panels. This shit got to be an amazing feeling for us. And if it's not, this ain't for you. Not, I'm just saying some of the other information on the channel might be for you. But tonight's conversation, if that's not an amazing feeling, that right there is an amazing feeling. It feels good. Hey, with that being said, I'm getting out of here tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Queen of Four. Once again, make sure you support the brother Aton Edwards. Thank you to King Simon. We getting out of here, family. Peace.